Welcome to Splattergore. This is episode 3, and I am going to talk about a couple different topics today. Well, let's just kick it up with a bang. The Witch review. I was very hesitant of watching this movie. I waited until it came through the mail in Netflix, and it was boring. The acting was overacting in the movie. You had bad voice stuff. Some of the characters were really low when they talked, some were really high. It was hard to distinguish what they were saying, what the plot was. Yeah, there was a cool scene in the beginning of like a naked chick like rubbing herself in baby's blood, I guess it was, but it never really got off the ground. Me, my uncle, and my girlfriend ended up turning it off because it was like this. Slow. Very slow build, and it wasn't building to anything. I thought it was going to take place in a whole town, instead it dealt with like 4 people. Now, some movies can do that really well, but The Witch was not. When I was watching it, I was looking for something really good, and I couldn't really see anything. There wasn't anything happening, and there wasn't like any spells or anything. There was like scaring of children. There was like a ram getting cut or something. I don't know. I was pretty bored when I was watching it, and normally if I'm really bored watching a horror movie, I'll never watch that movie again. And that would be what it was. It was boring. There wasn't anything good about it. So I just decided to turn it off. So to me, The Witch was a really bad movie. It might have a good ending, but if you can't keep my attention for the whole movie, then yeah, I ain't gonna finish it. So, moving on. I like doing like opinionated stuff. It's not always news. Sometimes it's just my opinions. And right now, I'm going to talk about what's better. Child's Play, the Child's Play series. And for those of you that do not know what the Child's Play series it is, the Chucky series, or Puppet Master. Now, Chuck is a very good character because he's voiced by Brad Dourif. Later on, the series got really comical. And there's like voodoo elements to it, and there's occult stuff, and some of the kills are really cool. The third one, when they go to the military school, Curse of Chucky kind of brought it back full circle. So you have that element to it, but on the other side of the coin you have Puppet Master, where you have multiple puppets all the time, whether it be Blade, or whether it be the Leech Woman, the Drill Man, Tiny. Tiny is the big giant puppet with the little tiny head. You have the Jester, you have Six Guns, you have like this demon one that comes later. Both franchises are really good. For the most part, both of them have kind of misses. Puppet Master has Retro Puppet Master, which is stupid. Axis of Evil I don't like either. But Chucky has the Bride of Chucky and the Seed of Chucky, which I think are abominations and fucking stupid. But for the most part, I think I give the Puppet Master. As cheesy as it is, and Full Moon is known for being cheesy, it's good. I like Puppet Master. I think it has interesting stories. The movies are never the same. They try and put a little something better into each one, and they always have a variety of puppets. So I think that Puppet Master would really win in this aspect and really give a little oomph to it. I think I could watch Puppet Master all the time. I go from that, we're going to talk about the best horror directors. Now, a lot of people go and they'll bring up Wes Craven. I'm sorry, I'm not a Wes Craven fan. He doesn't, like, I can name like 2 movies I like from him, and one of them is The Last House on the Left. And the best Freddy movies I like are not made by Wes Craven. And I hate Scream with a passion. Now, when I think of best horror directors, I would think Eli Roth will be one of them. Dario Argento, Sean Cunningham, Stuart Gordon, who did Reanimator, Sam Raimi for the Evil Dead series, Darren Basman for the Saw, James Wan, Toby Hooper would be another one. See, we'll start with first with like John Carpenter. John Carpenter, when you watch his movies, he has a certain style that you know it's a Carpenter film. You really, really know that it's a Carpenter movie, because they're almost always open-ended. He doesn't really give you an ending. He wants you to figure it out, so Carpenter's really good at that. His stories are interesting. In the Mouth of Madness is basically Call of Cthulhu, so that's really good. Another good horror movie director would be David Cronenberg, because whether it's The Fly or you could go Shivers, is a good horror movie as well. Videodrome. Cronenberg always has like an underlying meaning to it, to what he's trying to accomplish. And then of course you have Eli Roth for Hostel, Cabin Fever, Knock Knock, The Green Inferno, Soon You'll Be Clown. Eli Roth has like this sense to him where he wants to do something different every time. He doesn't like retreading water. That's why he walked away from the Cabin Fever franchise. Why he walked away from Hostel is because he felt like he was getting complacent. And I think he has a really good directing style. And even Sean S. Cunningham, you look at The Last House on the Left. The Last House on the Left was a very interesting movie. And then you go to Friday the 13th. To be a great horror director, you really have to be able to step outside the box, do something different, really try to establish yourself as a horror director, and that you're here to make an impact, like James Wan did with Saw, and Darren Bosman in some of the later Saw entries, and then in The Devil's Carnival, which is another good horror story. He really pushed the boundaries. And Stuart Gordon for Reanimator. Reanimator is considered a classic, one of the best horror films of the last 30 years. And from there we're going to talk about what is the best horror decade. Now, I'm only focusing on 3 decades. You have the 70s, you have the 80s, and you have the 90s. Now the 90s had reimaginings like Scream, you had Urban Legends, you had I Know You Did Last Summer. It had a lot of cheesy horror movies, but sandwiched in there were some classics that people may not have really took part in. Like they continued the Phantasm series and put some really good, intricate ideas in there. You had like, I personally like Dr. Giggles and The Dentist, and some of those. But the 90s were kind of lackluster if you compare them to the 80s and 70s. The 70s you had Jaws, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Rosemary's Baby, The Omen, The Exorcist, The Hills Have Eyes, The Last House on the Left, Halloween, Black Christmas. You had Orca. You had a lot of horror movies that meant something came out in the 70s. A lot of them were really good, and some were not so good. Like Alligator came out in the 70s. The original Phantasm came out in 1979, which Phantasm, if you watch the last video, is one of my top favorite horror movies. But to look at the decades, I would pick the 80s for the reason that I love slasher films. And there's a really cool documentary called Going to Pieces, The Rise and Fall of the Slasher Film. Now, the 80s were known for having the most amount of slasher films, and there's actually 3 different sections of slasher films, where it was one era, another era, and then the final era. And towards the end of the 80s, the slasher films almost died. But you had movies like Pieces, My Bloody Valentine, Graduation Day, Happy Birthday to Me, Terror Train, Prom Night, the Friday the 13th series, the Halloween series, Nightmare on Elm Street is a borderline slasher film. You had the Slumber Party Massacre, you had Sleepaway Camp. It was all about masked men killing people, but what was cool is some of those stories are gems. So you just have to keep going and think that depending what your style is, if you're into the supernatural and occult, then it would be the 70s. If you're into kind of the teeny bopper horror films, it would be the 90s. If you want straight up slasher films, it would be the 80s. So I like the 80s, so I'll go with the 80s for the best horror decade. Next is, who is the best horror icon? Now, if you look at horror icons, what I mean is you have Leatherface, you have Freddy, you have Jason, you have Michael, you have Pinhead. I don't know if I'd put anybody else in that category, because you have iconic roles. But when people think of horror, when people think of horror, they used to think, are you thinking about old school horror or new school horror? Old school, you would go with the Lugosi's and the Lon Chaney's and like the Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman. But I'm going to look at the modern horror icons, like from the 70s to now, and I look at them and who's the best horror icon. When I think of who's the best horror icon, it's who would scare me the most when I was a kid. Now you have Freddy, who kills you in your dreams. You have Leatherface, who is freaking a cannibal. You have Jason, who is like the first zombie. You have Michael, who is crazy. You have Pinhead. Well, I think with a lot of them, I would take Freddy out because you could suppress your dreams. You don't always dream. And Freddy only goes after teenagers. Okay? Freddy only goes after teenagers. Well, in that retrospective, Jason, as much as I love Jason, if you don't go to Camp Crystal Lake and you're not a teenager, you're okay. So that leaves us with Pinhead, Leatherface, Michael. Now, Leatherface, if you don't mess with Texas, you don't go where you're not supposed to go, it will hurt you. So there's two. Michael has no reservations on who he kills. He will kill anybody that gets in his way for the target that he's going for. And then you have Pinhead. Out of both of them, I would go Pinhead. Pinhead, you cannot kill him. He's unkillable. You can't stop him. Because he is ever living. He's inside that box. And all it takes is for you to mess with that box a little bit, chains to come out, rip your flesh off. And his curiosity killed the cat. Everybody has a curious side. It's like, oh, what's the box? It's a puzzle. The puzzle can't hurt me. It's like an opening Pandora's box. So Pinhead is the scariest because you look at him and the way he talks, the way he moves, what he wears. He is vengeance personified. He is one of the most scariest things you'll ever see on screen. And that, he just, to me, is one of the best horror icons. Even though I'm a huge Jason fan and a huge Michael fan, but you can't discount things. Now we're going to move to my franchise gone wrong segment. And this week we're going to talk about Wrong Turn and took a wrong turn. See, Wrong Turn was about a bunch of cannibalistic family picking people off just for being in their county. The first one was so epic, and you had Stan Winston involved in the original Wrong Turn, and the first one was so scary, and they went to such a point. But it went like this. It drifted down into oblivion. And that's what was weird, is you had a franchise that was so good, and then you had Wrong Turn 2, which was, it was okay. Wrong Turn 3 was okay. But then once you hit 4 and 5 and 6, they said, fuck the practical effects, everything's going to be CG. They went CG, and 4, 5, and 6 are supposed to be prequels to the original movies. So 1, 2, and 3 happened after 4, 5, and 6. It really is not that good. So I'm just gonna... it's a franchise I wish would have got better instead of got worse. The makeup effects got worse. The acting got worse. And I think it was the last one. They brought in Doug Bradley from Hellraiser to try and boost it up. I think it was like their dad or something. And it's just like the one in the snow, I think, was one of the worst ones. It's just the movies aren't held at a regard that they should be. But that's what happens with franchises when you make too many sequels. A franchise could start off good, and then it loses its steam, and then you have to reboot it, or you have to make another one in the series that makes people remember what it once was. They did that with Nightmare on Elm Street when they made Wes Craven's New Nightmare. They did that with Child's Play when they made The Curse of Chucky. They did that with Friday the 13th when they made the remake. They really, sometimes you just gotta go back to the basics and really make it something special. And finally, we're going to talk about my best horror memories. Now, I'm going to share with you a really good memory. Now, the year was 1997. So I had to be in 6th or 7th grade. I think it was in 6th grade. And what it was back then, you could have a membership, and they weren't so stickler for the ratings on movies. So what happened was, I had a membership through Silver Lake Video, and I used to go down and I would rent horror movies randomly. I would just randomly pick them. And I really, I loved the covers they had. They had the plastic over the actual case, so you had to go like this and lift it up. But you could see these awesome covers, like for Night of the Scarecrow, or Pumpkinhead had a really good cover, or the original cover for Nightmare on Elm Street, where the knives are coming down like this, or the silhouette of Jason for the Friday the 13th, Part 3, with the knife going through the sheet is what it looked like. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre cover, the original cover was good. The cover of the Annabelle Horror was good as well. Those covers were awesome. And then, sometimes you would get duds, really, really bad horror movies. Like Night of the Demons, which I still love Night of the Demons, but it's cheesy as fuck. Pushing lipstick through her boob to be, and I don't know, really weird one, but you'll find gems, like Subspecies, which I consider very good vampire movies. I love the Subspecies franchise. Puppet Master, Friday the 13th, the Halloween series, Demonic Toys, The Doll Man, Demons, the Piranha series. You can really find some stuff, but you can't do that anymore because there's not really video stores anymore. But I remember going in that video store, renting out 4 or 5 of them, 7 days later returning them after I'd watched them tons and tons of times, and then going to get more and more, because they had you could have the size of this room wouldn't even fill how much horror movies they had. I remember when I was a kid. I've been there since then, and it's not the same anymore, but I do remember how great it was to be a horror fan. I didn't even know what a horror fan was back then. I just, from the age of, I've always watched horror films, but it was when I was 11 or 12 that I was 11 years old is when I really started pouring all this horror knowledge in my head and watching these movies over and over again. And I still love telling somebody, oh, this is a really good horror movie, you should watch it. I like finding the classics. It's just, that's one of my really good horror memories. And that's the show for this week. Just wanted to give you some insight, give you a couple things, changing up the format a little bit. So I will see you guys next week for episode 4.